Eminem, The Way I Am. Proof epilogue. I can't even bring myself back to the place I was when I heard what happened to Proof. I have never felt so much pain in my life. It's a pain that is with me to this day, a pain that has become a part of who I am. I got in my car at 7 o'clock in the morning to go see Proof in the hospital, and he was just laid out. It was the worst day of my life. I just remember thinking, not Proof, not Proof, not Proof. Proof was kind of my rock, you know. His death brought me to my knees. I've had death in my family before. 2 of my uncles committed suicide, and it took chunks out of my life then. Everybody's got somebody they've lost in their life who was everything to them. I wasn't at that club when Proof got shot, but I gathered that the incident was a total misunderstanding that got blown way out of proportion. I try to stay away from places like that, but Proof was a real regular dude. He hung out in the hood even after all of his success, and that kind of success in any hood can lead to jealousy problems. I wish the fight would have stopped with just fists, but it escalated and Proof took the hit. Proof had a very strong personality. He wasn't one to back down. If you pushed the wrong button, something could go off in him. Still, he was a funny dude who wasn't gangsta all the time. He had a silly side like all of us in D12 do, so although Proof had this dual personality, what I remember most is his kindness. This is the dude who, when I was broke as fuck, came by my house and made me get rid of the thrift store loafers my mother had bought me. We're both size 10. He came over to the crib and was like, "What the fuck is on your feet?" Then he handed over a pair of Nikes that were pretty much brand new. It was one of those moments where I wanted to cry. Just like all friends do, Proof and I went through our up and down phases. On the road, we'd be with each other 24/7, and when we'd get back to the D, we would take time off. Because, you know, I can be an annoying motherfucker just like everybody else. If I didn't see him for a while, we would at least talk on the phone a couple times a week. We'd both become family men too, and we'd be busy with our kids. After he passed, it was a year before I could really do anything normally again. It was tough for me to even get out of bed, and I had days when I couldn't walk, let alone write a rhyme. When I tried to put my thoughts together, well, I wasn't making sense when I spoke, so everyone was trying to keep me off TV and away from the press. My brain was scattered, especially for the first couple of months after his death. It's been only 2 years and change now since he left, so it's still a tough thing to deal with. Now, when I think about touring, I wonder who's going to come on stage with me. This is the biggest tragedy I could imagine, aside from something happening to one of my kids. Proof played the fall guy in the video for like Toy Soldiers, the guy shot in the hospital. The point I was trying to make with that video was that rappers get into beefs, but it's really the opposing camps, the entourages who wind up getting hurt. Not too long after that, it unfortunately became reality. In the year after he died, I would stare at the ceiling and think about that video. Did karma cause that to happen in real life? Did I? You always want to point the finger at somebody else when something like that happens, you know? Proof was the key to my whole game. He was the only reason I stopped getting my ass whipped. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He was my ghetto pass. I don't know if anybody realizes it. That's why I'm saying it now. He didn't give a fuck about being called an Uncle Tom for being down with me. He stuck up for me like we were literally brothers. Before I was famous, before I had anything really, Kim and I were living in her mom's attic because we had nowhere else to go. If Proof hadn't gotten me out of there, if he hadn't gotten me down to the hip hop shop and into the rap game, I don't know where I'd be. I certainly wouldn't be somebody you've heard of. He was a brilliant cat who saw things in me that I didn't see yet. And I guess I was smart enough to understand that he was the dude who could somehow save my life. I had been drowning for so long. Proof was like a hip-hop life raft and a true brother from another mother. He had this ability to not only nurture my talent, but to see that diamond in the rough when a million people could be looking at the same thing and just not see it. And it's not like Proof didn't have plenty of his own talent to deal with. Proof was a hip-hop dude nobody could fuck with. Freestyling, battling, nobody could fuck with him. Nobody could fuck with him. Nobody. He used to come with us on the radio Friday nights. We're open mic in Detroit. This is when I was with my first group called Basement Productions. We had a song with Proof we were performing on air, and Proof hadn't learned his verse by heart yet. He only remembered his first 4 lines, and then he just started freestyling. You couldn't even tell that he fucked up because he was so good at it. That was Proof's God-given gift to be able to freestyle like that. Proof controlled the entire Motor City rap music scene in the mid to late 90s. He was that dude with dreads from Detroit who knew everybody. And everybody swore that he was going to be the first solo rapper to really make it out of Detroit. I remember seeing Treach and Vinny from Naughty by Nature at his funeral. I thanked them for coming out, but in hindsight, I realized, wow, why did I thank them? Everyone was. I was looking at it like this was my best friend, so some people were there to support me in my loss. But he obviously had his own deep connections and relationships. People liked him, loved him. So I lost my best friend, but I guarantee you there's a million people who would say, yeah, well, Proof was my best friend too. But with Proof and me, it was a mutual feeling. That's why I say that was my best friend. I was his best friend. Chapter 1, all I know. I knew I wanted to be a rapper around 14. That's the same year I met Proof. It was just like I said in Yellow Brick Road. I was on the steps of Osborne High, where Proof went to school, handing out flyers for a talent show. I had told him to stop by. And check this out sometime, he looked at me like I'm out of my mind. Shook his head like white boys don't know how to rhyme, or I spit out a line and rhyme birthday with first place. And we both had the same rhymes that sound alike. We was on the same shit that Big Daddy Kane shit with compound syllables sound combined. From that day we was down the ride. Somehow we knew we'd meet again somewhere down the line. At Osborne, Proof used to sneak me into the lunchroom to battle and hustle the fools there. We got paid. Proof would say I got 20 bucks on the white boy. It was the white men can't jump theory. No one thought the white boy could win. Proof would start banging a beat on the table, and we'd go around and I'd beat everybody who wanted to battle. Straight up, we'd go home and split up the money. We used to clean up. It was almost like we were pool sharks. But people started getting hip to that game, so we had to come up with a new one. That's when I started painting on jeans and jackets. Proof would kill me if he knew I was telling people this, but his first rap name was Maximum. So I painted Maximum on his jeans. I was serious with the art. I'd squeeze the fabric paint out to make the borders of the letters. Then paint inside. I stole the paint. I used to be a little klepto. I would wear a fluffy down jacket full of feathers and shit, and it had mad pockets. So I would fill up my coat with little bottles of fabric paint. My clientele would catch Proof would bring from the neighborhood. He would tell me what people wanted, and I'd say, what do you think I should charge? If it was $60, I would give Proof a 20 spot. Back then, that was a lot of money for me. It was like a second job. Better than the factory I was working at, sandblasting and doing dishes in the kitchen and cleaning machinery, getting my hands eaten up. Early on, Proof brought me one guy who wanted Eazy-E on the back of his stone-washed jean jacket. Eazy-E with a gun. When I started out on that painting, I didn't realize how long it was going to take. More and more people wanted stuff painted, and the orders started backing up. Proof was saying, yo, the homie wants his Eazy-E jacket. When are you going to be finished? Eazy took up the entire back of the jean jacket. The whole thing probably took 20 bottles of the paint that I stole. Proof taught me to stand up and be a man. He was the first person to show me how to fight. If you've never been hit, you're scared to be hit because you don't know what it's going to feel like. Proof got me over that initial fear. He and I would bare knuckle box. My shots would be so wide open that Proof would just keep tagging me. At Dresden Street, there was a redneck biker dude who used to stand at the fence and watch us fight. He'd be like, come on, Marshall, get up. What are you, a pussy? Get up. And Proof would go, damn, stay down, man, stay down. But I'd always get right the fuck back up. Until Proof would knock me completely senseless, I just told him, don't knock my teeth out, please. He was constantly keeping me on my P's and Q's. We'd come inside the house. Afterward, with bloody knuckles, tired and fucked up. From there, Proof would make us do this drill, where one of us would pick a word and then see how many words we could rhyme with it. Or pick 5 words and make a rhyme in 1 minute. And whoever didn't get it done would get punched in the face. Kidding. We fought like brothers, but we could never have a real beef. There was a bond that just could not be broken. We would fight about the stupidest things. Once I didn't pick up Proof when I said I would because I was talking to this girl on the phone for a hot minute. When I finally showed up, Proof said he didn't want to play hoops anymore. I tossed him the ball in motion for him to get in the front seat. He threw it on the floor of my car, shut the door, and stormed off. We didn't speak for 2 weeks. It was weird because we both worked at the same place, then Little Caesars. One day he comes by and snaps me right in the ass with a towel. I'm like, you motherfucker. I run at him and we start having this towel war. All of a sudden we're friends again. Before I started 9th grade, my mother moved us to Dresden Street on the east side of Detroit. I was still enrolled in my old school a few miles away. That walk was bitter in the winter. But I spent my time at Osborne High School hanging out with Proof. My Uncle Ronnie first turned me on to hip hop when I was 11. My grandmother had him late in life. So even though he was my uncle, we were about the same age, and we grew up together as kids in Missouri. Ronnie made tapes by himself. He lived in his trailer park, and he had 2 radios with cassette decks. He used one as a beatbox. He hit play, and I remember exactly how it went. Then he hit record on the other deck and rapped over the beat. That faggot walking down the street, he think that he have a funky beat. Ha ha, look at him combing his hair. I bet he don't even change his underwear. He thinks he's bad, I think he's sad. But the only reason I am glad, I am the king of the funky beat. I know what's going down. I made a copy and took that tape home and listened to it over and over. That's when I realized I wanted to do it myself. Rap. I hadn't touched hip hop yet. I was into Michael Jackson and New Edition, you know, Cool It Now. But even in Cool It Now, they rapped at the end. I had heard raps before, then the first one was Jam On It by Nucleus on the radio. And Ronnie had brought over the Breakin' soundtrack with Ice-T's Reckless on it. After I heard his tapes, I started grabbing everything older rap like Mantronics. I memorized the lyrics to the message. It was all starting to sink in. At the beginning of 6th grade, 3 kids I went to school with taught me to break dance. They would throw down a piece of cardboard in the school library and get busy. We were living in these public housing apartments in Savannah, Missouri, and my friends and I used to walk with our cardboard to the playground up the street, set the cardboard down, and we'd attract all the girls who lived in the complex. That was the shit. I didn't see Uncle Ronnie for a while because my mom moved us back to Detroit. When we visited Missouri for summer, Ronnie had gotten into heavy metal and cowboy boots. It just bugged me the fuck out. I knew the words to LL Cool J's I'm Bad Front and Back, and I'm standing in Ronnie's driveway, rapping it, putting on a show for cars riding by. No one could tell me I wasn't LL Cool J. The Beastie Boys' license to ill played a big part for me, because obviously they were white guys rapping in a predominantly black music form, and they were just fun. One of the best live hip-hop shows I ever saw as a kid was Run DMC's Tougher Than Leather tour. The Beastie Boys opened the show, and they brought a giant dick out on stage. Hip-hop was so alive back then. Performance meant everything. If you were whack, you'd get booed off the stage, because hip-hop always keeps it real. I liked the Beastie Boys because they were themselves, they weren't fronting. Millions of kids around the world could relate to where they were coming from. When they first came out, they had mad respect in the underground. They had it all covered. It was them being themselves that helped me figure out how to relax and be me. Made me feel like I could get up there and rock the mic and rock millions. That's what every wannabe rapper wants. I spent a lot of time by myself, so hip-hop became my girl, my confidant, my best homie. It had so many emotions. LL could rap about the girls, and Rakim, with his wordplay, could get real deep with it. Boogie Down Productions could actually teach you something, which is incredible when you just listen to music for the vibe. Master Ace had amazing storytelling skills. His thoughts were so vivid. MCs were real people who dressed like you did. They wore Adidas just like you. And hip-hop was raw. It was so direct. I understood the language. It was putting words together and talking shit. The shit that was on my mind, be it funny or angry or sad. It gave me confidence when people were into what I was saying. Helped me communicate better with girls. It was rhythmic, and rhythmic things like basketball helped me to express myself. All of these rappers and groups were my teachers, and I was a full-time student of hip-hop. I think you can hear a bit of all of them in what I've done. The first time I rapped at an actual club was when I was in my teens. I was pretty fucking young. It's one of those things where you want to try it out, see if you're okay with it. It was just terrible. It was at a party called the Rhythm Kitchen. I went with some friends, stupidly, not proof. I was trying to poke fun at myself, and I said something in a rap like cracker or honky. That's right, honky. That's right, honky. I used to have a sense of humor about my position in the rap world, but not anymore. For some reason, I thought that it would be cool for the crowd to chant, and it was a pretty big mistake. I might have gotten 3 words out, and immediately the jeering started. That was one of my worst experiences. I thought, oh fuck, I'm not good at this. I went home with my tail between my legs. It took me a long time after that to perform in public again, but I kept rapping. I was making songs whenever I could, but because our equipment was so ghetto, I'd have to nail it in one take. If I messed up, I'd have to do it all over again from the top. So I had to not only write the song, but learn it by heart. Back then, I was with a group called Basement Productions, my first rap group. We would take the finished product up to Lisa and this guy named DJ Dick. They were radio personalities in Detroit and had a show called Open Mic every Friday night. They gave us our first shot, telling people to check us out. Mark Bass heard our song called Crackers and Cheese on the radio, and he liked it. He and his brother Jeff had a studio, FBT, the Funky Bass team. He called up Lisa and asked, who is that? We talked to him on the air, and then we ended up going to his studio, and we made a 3-song demo. I was too young. It was too early in my career. The Bass brothers had a connection, and they played it for some folks at Elektra Records. The label said Eminem sounds too young. My voice was real squeaky. Not that it wasn't on my name is, but I'll get to that soon. I took my income tax refunds and a little bit of extra money and started paying to record more at FBT. Mark Bass came in and listened to the stuff, and he liked it, so he started letting me in little by little, sometimes to record for free. He saw I was taking initiative. I made my own cassette tapes and released my own singles. I drew the cover, my own artwork. It was a cartoon cover, and the songs were called fucking Backstabber and Biterphobia. When I got the tapes, I didn't even know what to do with them. I started going around putting them on consignment at record stores, and they weren't selling. They weren't selling. I think I sold maybe 3 copies of the shit. When I go back and listen to them now, they're whack, but I guess they weren't whack for that time period. I was driving my Mercury Tracer, going around to record stores, putting my tapes on consignment. That's how it started. When I was 18, I was confused about which way to go with life. I was good at rap, but I wasn't great. I thought I could be better at basketball than I could be at rapping. I was seriously considering pursuing a pro b-ball career. I played pretty hardcore for that entire year. There were 2 courts I used to play at, one where I was the best baller and one where I was the second best. If this one dude showed up. He was taller than me, and he could dunk. Basketball was a long shot, but so was rapping. Vanilla Ice had made it damn near impossible for a white kid to get respect in rap music. Proof and I wanted the dream, so we gambled big. We dropped out and went for the gold. Proof quit his job at Little Caesars. He said, fuck this, I'm doing hip-hop full-time. He started growing his dreads out, and he was on his way to becoming the best-known hip-hop figure in all of Detroit. Proof would come back to Little Caesars with his own group at the time, 5 Elements. Once we played each other our songs in the parking lot, and it was a defining moment for me. because it made me feel like I could keep up. Proof thought my song was better than his. He was like, I got to get back in the studio. So there was competition between us, but it was positive. It helped me grow as a writer and artist. After that, he'd come back and play more songs. He was hanging around with JDJ Dilla, R.I.P., and getting beats from him. The sound was so clean, it made my shit sound bad by comparison. His beats were so dope. If you listen to those tapes, the way Proof rhymes still sounds dope. He had Tommy Boy Records looking at him and was going back and forth to New York. Everyone just assumed Proof was going to be the first to get a solo record deal. Around 1992, I moved to another place on the east side of Detroit on Novara Street. I shot that street out in a couple of raps. Like Mockingbird, we had a house full of bachelors. Even though I had a girl, she didn't stay there all the time. So I'd get off work at 11 o'clock, and we'd sit on the porch and drink 40s and rap against each other, or we'd freestyle. One of our roommates, my boy Butter, had a mic and a turntable. Denon Porter, who was con artist in D12, used to stay there too. He ended up working at Little Caesars with us, and I gave him my bedroom so he could set up his equipment there. I slept on the couch, which wasn't a big deal. It was a fair trade. The guy was making my beats. Then we'd go to real studios like Mo Master, whenever we could get in. And you better nail your verse in 1 or 2 takes, because you've only got 40 bucks in your pocket. It is 40 bucks an hour to book the studio. Denon also lived with me, Kim and Haley on Fairport Street when Haley was a newborn. Proof set up a little 4-track studio in the basement. This is when the early essence of D12 was really starting to come together. We didn't even really know it yet. We were all friends and associates, mainly through Proof in the Detroit scene. There was Bizarre, of course everyone knows Busy. Denon and his friend Kaniva rhymed together and called themselves D Brigade. Bugs introduced me to Swift, who was in a group called the Ray B's with Bearda. They were dope. We rapped and recorded together because sometimes it made sense economically. We had to share resources. Shit has always been lean in the D. With Denon on the beats, the 6 of us would go hard on the rhymes. It was very competitive as far as who got what track, how much space there was for each rhymer. If I rapped a take and folks liked it, we would stop the tape and figure out who was going to blaze it next. So everyone would just be standing around my basement waiting to get their chance. Everybody was so tight back then. We made this pact the infamous pact. Whoever makes it out first will come back for the rest of us. Rap was always a pipe dream for me, but rap was all I had. Because really, what was I going to do with my life? I had a young daughter. Kim and I were always either getting evicted or our house was getting shot up or robbed. We had to move to Kim's parents' house for a while, up in the attic. You couldn't even stand up in it. We put a mattress on the floor and called it a bedroom. I listened to beats on the stereo up there and write rhymes. I started to become a little hermitish. I was thinking, all I have to do is make a new demo. I'll find out how to shop it. But I slowed down for a period, just dealing with life shit, domestic shit. Proof was always on me though. That's when he got me out of that attic. He called me one night and had me say one of those raps over the phone. He told me to come down to the hip hop shop to see what kind of response I get. That's when everything changed. I had recorded some stuff with this Kid Scam. Talk about it in Standout, he's a rapper, but he's also a dope comic book artist. And he ended up doing all the album art for the Slim Shady LP and portraits of D12 the way we really look when we're just hanging out. That's Busy with the hip hop beer mug. I'm the Mummy representing the 313. Kaniva's rocking the spiked helmet. Con Artist is carrying the crowbar. And Swifty's got the bag of cash. The crazy looking robot is Proof. And DJ Head in the Jar toured with us and was the house DJ at the hip hop shop. The significance of the hip hop shop was huge. When Maurice Malone first opened the hip hop shop, it was mainly a clothing store. He started having open mic sessions there on Saturdays. Proof hosted it, doing battles and rhyming contests. Maurice was really supportive of the local scene. The hip hop shop was like the Apollo. You could get booed out of there quicker than shit if you weren't paying attention. It was the place if you wanted to make a name for yourself, not only in Detroit, but all over the world. And the crowd would not put up with bullshit. They heard bullshit, they flew. Proof was a mastermind. He had it all planned that day. He told me that there was a big battle going down and that I should get there at the end when the shop was clearing out so I could ease my way into it and get feedback from a smaller number of people. He said, come out and see if you like it. If you don't like it, you never have to come here again. That's how I did it. I went there 20 minutes before the battle was over. This was in '95. I rapped and I got a response and it was insane. The people were jumping up and down and screaming. The heads there were like, Proof, where did you find this dude at? I started going every single week, putting my work schedule around performing there. I built up the confidence to keep doing it. And then I started battling people. I was the only white dude rapping in there and I was getting love, finally getting the respect I had dreamed of. Even though it was in that small circle, it didn't matter. I finally had acceptance. Feeding off that energy made me come back the next week, and the next week, and the next week. I became addicted to the oohs and ahs from the audience. There'd be bigger and bigger crowds every time. I started getting a name for myself in Detroit and I actually got paid for shows. That was big for me. I started really making moves after I connected with my manager, Paul Rosenberg, in '95. Proof introduced us, of course, when I won the second big annual battle at the hip hop shop. That was against LA Pesci, who I left in LA pieces. Paul moved to New York to be a lawyer, but Paul and I had stayed in touch and eventually sent him a demo tape. It was the bones of what became the Slim Shady EP. Paul heard that tape, and he thought it was so far beyond what I'd done on Infinite, you know. He got excited and went to some payphone to call me in Detroit. He was standing outside in Manhattan with his calling card running out to ask if he could be my lawyer, start shopping my stuff. I already had a manager at that time, but I would stay with Paul when I went out to New York for gigs Paul booked. We were staying at his house in Astoria, Queens, when my old manager and I wound up falling out over a Whopper sandwich. Manager dude was going to Burger King, and he didn't ask me if I wanted anything to eat, knowing I had no money. I didn't have $1 in my fucking pocket. At that point, I said, fuck it, you know, what kind of fucking manager are you? I always thought that if you want to manage somebody, you believe in them, you invest. It's a gamble, like a roll of the dice. I kept the pass on my t-shirt to show that I had rocked with the Wu. Me and the Outsiders opened for Wu-Tang at the Park Hill housing projects in Staten Island. I had met the Outsiders through Bazaar, and when me and Paul took the bus to meet them in New Jersey, they warned us not to get off at the Newark station until we saw them or we would get robbed. And I thought Detroit was heavy. I started getting booed when I first came out at Park Hill, but when people heard what I was actually saying, the boos turned to cheers. The last song on the 92 demo tape was a song I never released called Slim Shady, but the very beginning was missing. There were 3 other songs on there too. No One Is Iller Than Me, Low Down, Dirty, and Dumpin'. After the hip hop shop, I started going to bigger and bigger battles. In '97, I went to the Scribble Jam in Ohio. I got to the point where I was battling the champion Juice. He beat me in the first battle, I beat him the second. We were supposed to go to the tiebreaker. And I came to find out that his manager had put together the whole event and was running the turntables. In the last round, I hit him with all my punchlines, then I choked. Juice hit me with this rhyme that he had obviously written out before. Everything was structured out perfectly. He says something like, this dude wants to stand here and act like he can drop lines, or I just walk right past his ass like a stop sign. The crowd goes nuts. Juice wins the trophy, claps all around. I went back to Detroit depressed and totally broke. A little while after that, I started recording the original version of a song called Rock Bottom. It's on the Slim Shady LP. It's a serious, sad song. During that session, Mark Bass and I found out that this guy who we thought was going to get us a deal at Jive Records only worked in the mailroom, and he had no juice at all. I was completely depressed, in one of those just fuck it states. That night at the studio was the first time I ever used drugs. I swallowed a handful of Tylenol 3s. My whole mind frame was, I'm going to finish this song, and this will be the last song I ever record. Thank God I had no tolerance for that shit, because I puked up everything in the fucking bathroom. I had to wear one of Marky's shirts home. Then it was time to go to LA. For the Rap Olympics, where I battled all these rappers and took them out. I got to the very last dude. I had metaphors stacked up. I would throw some freestyle battling in there, and then a written punchline rhyme. The whole key to freestyle is that you say a punchline that you know everyone's going to go crazy over, and because everybody's screaming, they're not going to be able to hear the next couple of lines. So you can say anything after. In the final round, I'm supposed to be on stage going head to head, rapping face to face, man against man. But this dude named Otherwise goes behind the video screen, and he walks in the opposite direction of my rapping ass, so I've got nobody in front of me to rip apart. I don't remember any of his rhymes outside of him screaming in my face that he was gonna fuck me up, slit my throat, kill me. I don't know if anything even rhymed. Bitch, I'll kill you. I'll fucking drill you. I hate you. I'll fucking degrade you. And that's how he beat me. The first prize was $500 in a Rolex. I don't know if the Rolex was real, but I needed money, and that $500 was real. I was so pissed off that I had lost in the last round again. Because in Detroit, I was undefeated. It was so hard to take the loss from Juice when I choked for the very first time, and then to choke again on somebody who wasn't anywhere near Juice's caliber at the Rap Olympics. I was giving up. I had lost. When I was walking away from the Rap Olympics joint, this dude, Dean Geislinger from Interscope, he worked as an assistant in Jimmy Iovine's office. He walked up and asked if he could have my demo. I was in such a fucked up mood that I just chucked the tape at him. All I kept thinking after that was, what the fuck am I going to do? Because I was going home to nothing. I recorded Infinite in 1995, my first album. It sold maybe 70 copies and didn't get great feedback. I hadn't found myself yet. A lot of people said it sounded like Nas and he was a heavy influence at the time, but I had an album out and I could say that. With the Slim Shady LP, it was a different story. That shit got some buzz in the underground and online sites couldn't keep it in stock. I started getting calls about shows.